Hi, this is Michael Bobadilla, RWCLL Little League's president here with Ryan Headley, our VP of Operations, walking through today what is our Parent Information Night, our video that we like to try out this year to spread the information on what we plan to do in 2018 for RWCLL Little League, as well as give you all our new parents some information on what to expect throughout the rest of the season. For those who are unaware of Little League's history, Little League has been around since 1939. And was expanded out west in 1966 when the Western region was created. Our own District 52, which ranges from Burlingame all the way down to Palo Alto, was founded in 1969. And Redwood City itself had 3 different Little Leagues operating for years up until 2012 when we were combined into one Redwood City Little League.
Little League International is a worldwide organization providing youth baseball across the world. It's kind of headquartered here in the Bay or in the United States, but as you guys see with the World Series, it spans countries including Japan, who's always a powerhouse, and several other leagues or countries are involved with Little League. So that's why Little League is around, to kind of spread the cheer of baseball.
Exactly. So every year, Little League International put together what we affectionately call the Green Book. This one actually puts down all the rules and regulations that talk about how we as a league itself can run the individual league. Here in Redwood City, we are one of the largest youth sports organizations. We have over 700 plus players every year. We are
200 volunteers.
Exactly, 200 volunteers, and we're a 100% volunteer organization. Every single person that you see helping out at a baseball game, managing, coaching, umpiring, except if they're a youth umpire, is a volunteer. So everyone has their own day job, and they're coming out here out of the love of their own heart and for the game of baseball to come out and teach the youth the game of baseball. One of the most popular questions we have is, okay, how do you get so lucky to be on the board of directors like Ryan and I?
Lucky.
Lucky, yes. So every year in June, we have an election with all of the volunteers. That's all of the actual coaches and managers. They're allowed to put a vote in for anyone who's nominated to be a board member. After that process, the new board will meet in September, prior to the new fiscal year starting for Little League in October, elect a president, and that president then doles out the rest of the responsibilities for everyone else who made the board vote. The next most popular question is, hey, where does all that money go that we collect from registration fees? One thing that we're very proud of here in Redwood City is we're one of the least costly Little League programs on the peninsula at the prices that we're able to provide Little League baseball to everyone in the city of Redwood City or anyone who attends a Redwood City school. How do we keep those costs low? Well, we have a healthy amount of team sponsorships that are coming from all the businesses within Redwood City, as well as other surrounding cities who like to participate and help finance our program. And then we have one of the most successful fundraising events for Little League on the peninsula with our hit-a-thon. Every year making what?
45,000 a year, I believe, which is hugely important to keep these costs down for registration. If you look at some of the other cities around, I mean, they're upwards of $300 for registrations, but they don't also get the support on the fundraiser. So we've been fortunate enough for our Redwood City families to really contribute during the fundraiser, and that allows us to keep our costs down. So that is much appreciated. Look for that hit-a-thon coming up. You guys will get information out on it. But hugely, hugely important for us in keeping our costs down.
So another popular question, if we were to have an FAQ, that maybe 10 most popular questions we get, what is the schedule of events, and how is the entire organization run? Well, I mentioned earlier that we have a board of we elect our board of directors in June. That's part of what we do before we close out the previous season. So as you can see from this slide here, everything that we do in March really starts 9 months in advance, and a lot of planning from a lot of people in order to make sure that we can have baseball here in Redwood City. As I mentioned earlier, so we go ahead, we elect a president of the board members who are voted in by the coaches that previous year, and then the board really starts planning that next season with what we can tell from returning players, any changes that are coming down from Williamsport as far as the next year's worth of Green Book rules are, and then start opening up our registration in November. A lot of people ask, why do you open your registration so early? That has to do with the size of the league that we're running.
I'm going to ask why you don't register early. That's more important for us.
So we've ranged anywhere from 600 to 900 kids. So trying to plan effectively for 600 to 900 people requires some advanced planning. And so that is why for our upper division draft leagues, where we don't have as much flexibility as we do with lower divisions, we start that registration process early and close that on December 31st in order for us to start having tryouts within 2 to 3 weeks.
We have to know how many coaches or how many teams we're going to have. That's all based on 12 players per team. So once we know exactly how many players are registered, it helps us line up the amount of coaches. So that's why we do ask you guys really to register before the end of the calendar year. So it gives us 2 to 3 weeks to make sure we have enough coaches lined up, that they're all aware of tryout dates and they can all be out there. So please register on time, and this is exactly why, so we don't run into problems at the last minute with tryouts.
Yeah, and so once we have those numbers, we're able to do some of the basic fundamentals we need to do to become a league, which is charter with Little League, which allows us to have insurance and be able to actually start beginning a lot of the work on paper and through their data center for how we run the league. So in January, that's when we'll actually start making those hard decisions like Ryan was talking about with who's a coach, who's a manager, as well as start doing our tryouts and working on the rest of the evaluations for the other divisions below the tryout divisions.
Yeah, and I do want to stress that part. It really has to do with AAA and above. Anybody who's trying out in that age group, which is 9 and above, that's where tryouts happen and the draft happens. So if you're in those AA divisions or typically 8 years old and younger, the team and the tryouts don't apply to you.
Exactly. So if you're in one of the lower divisions, and we'll get to that in a little bit more detail here in a minute, where you do not have to try out, we'll go through the process of placing you on teams in the month of February, and we start beginning in March with actually late February with practices and opening day in March. Opening day, we'll have more details for you and shortly here on what we're doing this year to try and improve on what we've done in years past. Then once we say play ball in March, we have baseball almost every week, every weekend for most of these teams through June, with a couple of weeks off for spring breaks for both the local parochial schools and the public schools. Come May, that's when we start working on developing who the all-star programs are for that year, as well as we open up the question to being a board of director member for next year. As we mentioned, we're 100% volunteer organization. Every year we need some new blood to help keep it fresh and to keep moving things and bring some new ideas to the board. And so that May time frame is when we start asking for nominations for new board members. At that point in time, after we have that all figured out, we start getting really to the year-end part of our year, where we start having our tournaments for AA and above, where we're going to go crown a city champion, and then we actually have our board election and roll into the all-star season. About that time, it's also when we start putting feelers out for how many boys and girls in Road City are interested in playing fall ball, which is a little less structured, a little more instructional league that folks can actually play up a division, trying to get their skills ready for the next year. And depending on how many people we have at each various levels, we can make that decision at that point in time if we're having a fall ball program for that division or not.
And I just want to make one thing real clear too. If you are playing up in the fall ball division, i.e. if you're an 11-year-old playing a 50-70 fall ball, that does not guarantee you a spot on a 50-70 spring team the following year. So just keep that in mind when you guys are thinking about the fall ball registration. Feel free to give it a try and all that so they can get the experience. Go out to tryouts and you would register for the division that you want to play in. So in this case it'd be 50-70 and they have to try out just like everybody else, all right?
Okay, so one of the key things really in any sort of organization is how you communicate down with the various people who need to absorb some information. As we said, we have 600 plus families who are always looking for when a practice time is, when is the next big event that they need to be paying attention to, especially for families with more than one kid.
Yeah.
It can take an army to go figure out where you got to be when.
Coaching, playing, umpiring. I mean, it's a mess.
So we rely heavily on our website, RWCLL.org. That has really replaced on the teams that I've managed the old-fashioned team parents who would pick up the phone and call everybody and make sure kids were coming and assigning the various duties you have during the season. it's the number one way our coaches communicate to their players, to you. It's also one of the main way that we communicate out through from the board to the rest of the organization. Along those lines, there's also a new app that we have with SI Play. This is one that our coaches are using, so they can on the spot be able to go send out a communication to their team if they show up and the field is locked, the field is too damp, any of these sort of things that prevent them from being able to do their job. They're able to go ahead and communicate to the entire team with a couple clicks of a button. And then also, like any other organization, we're using social media. Facebook is one of the cheapest, fastest, easiest ways for us to be able to go provide information. That's where we're bugging people for tryouts in years. That's where we're making announcements. That's where you're going to see videos like these. And that's how we're going to continue to communicate some important information. So go ahead and if you are using Facebook, go ahead and like Redwood City Little League and continue to get information like this as soon as we deploy it.
Yeah, hey, real quick also, when you guys are looking at the website, for those of you with multi-kids in the program, when you're looking at your team schedule at the very bottom, select on that multi-schedule and you'll be able to select multiple teams, and it'll come up in one view of your family's events versus just the one. So nice little trick that I've used over the years. Yeah, but it should be at the very bottom of the schedule. It says multi-schedule, and go from there.
Yeah, and we'll get to umpires here in a second, but what we do with our youth umpires is they use the same website to be able to go sign up for what games that they would like to go umpire. That way they can balance it out with if they're still a player in Redwood City Little League, their practice times, there's game times along with what games they'd like to be able to go umpire. Okay, so the big day that we're aiming for is March 10th. That is opening day for us here in Redwood City. The center of the universe for Redwood City baseball is really Red Morton Park, and that's for anyone who's already tried out, you've been there. For those who are new to our league, we hope if you don't know where Red Morton Park is, you're going to figure that out quite quickly. For our younger players, our T-ball or A-ball players, we have a special ceremony at 9 a.m. That's where we're going to introduce everyone, really have a team parade, and go ahead and introduce and thank the coaches who are taking care of those kids, as well as make some special announcements that day, and hopefully have some special guests to come out and throw out a ceremonial first pitch for us. Throughout the rest of the park then, we will have games going from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. that night through all the various divisions we have. So you would be able to go find AA, AAA majors, and juniors games throughout the entire day. And then in the middle of all that action is our snack shack, which we will have open the entire day, and we're planning to have open more often while we have full slates of games at Red Morton. That way you can come out, enjoy a hot meal, and go watch some local baseball. The next date we want to mark on the calendar is
This is our big one. Mark the calendar now.
So the Hit-a-thon, we try and do double duty here. So it's Hit-a-thon and photo day. So if you haven't been through a photo day in quite a while, it probably hasn't changed. You're filling out a form, you're selecting what package you'd like. It's a great time to start getting mouse pads and coffee cups for grandma and grandpa for Christmas. It's a great time to grab a buddy photo with if you're on a team with a friend from school, or someone you've been on a team with for a long time. We also, for our coaches, Redwood City Little League does pay for an extra photo of you and your player, so you can take that home as an extra thank you for the time and effort that you put in to the league. After you take your photos, we then roll into the Hit-a-thon, which is the fundraising portion of the day.
And so I want to make it clear on kind of how that day works. If you're in the younger divisions, T-ball, A-ball, and AA, correct?
Correct.
And AA, you guys, it's a hit for distance type competition. So they're going to put the ball on the tee. Kids are going to have 5 or 7 swings, and they're going to mark their longest one, and that's how we're going to judge. For the upper divisions, it's still a hit-a-thon, but we're using a point system. Home runs are obviously the more points, and I think we have those fences set about 180 for this competition. So the ball's over the fence, a ball to the outfield, a ball past the infield. Those are all different point structures. So for AAA and above, you guys will have more of a hitting competition with a point system. Lower will be a hit for distance.
And then to help raise the fundraising efforts from our Little Leaguers, there is a raffle that goes on where, depending on the amount of money you're able to provide, either through 99 pledges or through checks and cash on day of, we're able to go out and have some prizes that have been donated to the community to be able to just entice everybody. And it's always, I know all the little guys are always really happy to try and go get one of the packs or the gifts that are available, and are always looking forward to when we announce that later on in the season.
Yeah, we already have some nice gifts lined up for this year, but we're always looking for anything from our sponsors or any members of the league. So if you guys have any paraphernalia, anything that you guys want to donate for one of our kids to possibly take home, we're always looking for donations.
All right, so one of the first things that we talk about and we stress through any of our coach trainings, as well as through any conversations we're having at the board level, is really player safety. It's the first job that we're really required to do down from Williamsport through San Bernardino into District 52 and then to us, is to make sure that we have a safe playing environment for all of the Little Leaguers who come out and play. So what do we do to make that happen? Well, one of the things we have is called our safety plan, and the term that Little League uses, ASAP. So that's a safety plan that requires us to have a safety officer who goes ahead and ensures that all of the requirements that Little League puts on us are obtained through us as a league, as well as really doing all the background checks to make sure that all of the volunteers who have repeated contact with our players do not have any issues. So if they've convicted or pled guilty to any sort of crime that's involving children, they're not allowed, and they're black flagged, and we can't allow them to come out and be participating in the league. Next up is really how we protect players. And so obviously there's a lot of discussion in youth sports these days about concussions.
Yep.
In baseball in particular, how we're protecting young arms from being fatigued, and what are we doing to make sure these kids don't just play up until age 12 or in residency up until age 16 and you're done because your arm is toast. So what do we do to help that? So for all of our divisions, we do have coach trainings, both live as well as in-person training, really going over the safety of how to use the equipment in our younger divisions, as well as proper warm-ups and throwing techniques for the older players. Next up, when we talk about how do we select coaches? So one of the funner jobs as a president of Little League is having to decide between a lot of good candidates and good people who want to go ahead and be a coach, but you can only support so many at a given time based off of your registration numbers. So the basic process for coach selection is anyone's got to go ahead and put that volunteer application together. Another thing that we do exclusively online through our website. And when we have our registration numbers figured out at the end of January, that's the point, or beginning of January, that's when we go ahead, we start selecting the coaches and try and pair them up, ideally, if we have enough coaches to go ahead and put that together to put more horsepower between a manager and a coach.
And that's one thing I really want to talk about too, also, as well, is the way that you become a coach. It really depends on what you've done previously as well. So make sure that, if you guys want to take it up to the majors level, as Mike was saying, everything kind of shrinks down. We have a lot of teams at the younger age, kids start to get out of the league, number of teams kind of shrinks. And when that happens, you may have the same amount of volunteers with not the amount of teams that you have. So then we're looking at, historically, any write-ups, any complaints that we have, just general communication, coaching prowess. It's just stuff that we look at and we recognize as a board. So if you want to continue your coaching throughout this league over the years, which we love and we highly recommend, it's very important for you guys to kind of stay on the straight and narrow and do it year in and year out, because when you do get to the higher divisions and majors, you haven't coached for 2 years, it's kind of hard for us to slot somebody in that spot when somebody has dedicated their time throughout the course of the years. Exactly.
And one thing with Little League is that there's no guarantee year after year of either being an umpire or a coach. So every year we force the coaches to go through the same process again. They get another background check every year, and then we're really reevaluating, as Ryan just said, for what has that coach brought to the table for the league in the previous years in order to go make that selection. Umpires.
Oh, be good. That's all we should say. Be very, very good.
Yes. So one thing we like to say to our parents and to our players, this is not a San Francisco Giants game where you've paid your money and you're free to yell and scream at anyone, or especially the umpire, whatever you're feeling at the point in time. The umpires within our city are all people that you're going to run to at Safeway. You're going to run into them somewhere in line. You're probably going to run into them again sometime in your baseball career, especially our youth umpires. These are all kids. These are really their first job. Being a youth umpire was my first job. I do remember, I still have scars from the big bad guys who were yelling at me in Little League years ago. And that's even a couple years ago, some people yelling at me. That's something we just don't tolerate here in Redwood City. We need to protect our umpires. They're an integral part of the game. You literally can't have a game after the AA division level without these umpires. And it's becoming harder and harder to get people to volunteer their time to do that because of the way they're treated by parents and by grandma and grandpa and everyone else who's coming along for the ride. We think it's acceptable to jeer an umpire like it's a professional ball game.
And Mike hit the nail on the head. Volunteers are not what they used to be at the adult level. So it's kind of forced not only Redwood City Little League, but other leagues to really get into the youth umpire movement. And that's something that I think we as a board have really kind of embraced, and we want to teach our kids in the city about baseball, and part of baseball is umpiring. And Steve Washington and Dan Williams have done a great job with the trainings already this year. We have a ton of people signed up to umpire this year. But what it means is you're going to have some guys who are still learning the game, just like your players are. In the majors division, yes, it's a competitive division. We're going to put our best guys up there in 50-70. From AAA and below, it's instructional baseball play. The whole thing is instructional, that, you know, we don't keep standings there. We have playoffs and that kind of stuff, but we're not really watching standings. Let the umpires learn to umpire. Help the umpires learn to umpire. Don't ream them and force them to not want to umpire. Because we need these youths, unless we're going to get some of you adults out there and on the field. We'd love to have you. Please, please come. But until you guys make a decision to come out and help, this is what we're going to go with. And we're going to do the best that we can to train these umpires. But we're just asking for a little leeway from you guys, understanding kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and so when we have nothing but youth umpires, and that does actually happen with a majority of our majors games all the way down to our AA games, what we do require is the home team to provide an umpire advocate. This person is another volunteer who is really there to protect the youth umpire and to prevent them from any bullying from both fans and from managers and coaches, and to help them just protect themselves if any of those situations should arise. Okay, so one of the always popular questions, everyone loves getting their baseball uniform, and how soon can we get them, and what team are we on? So a couple quick notes about uniforms. So uniforms are required for all games. It actually, Little League doesn't allow you to wear your uniform to practice. So even if we have a scrimmage against another team, you got to keep that clean uni home for the day and go ahead and wear whatever gear that you have instead. We tend to distribute the uniforms to coaches from Getz Brothers, where we get them as one of our main sponsors, and as our equipment manager Brent Getz handles those tasks for us. That usually happens in the first week of March. And what does everybody receive? Well, depending on what team you're on, you're getting a hat, a shirt, or a jersey style t-shirt to go with it, socks, belts, and a Getz Brothers pants voucher, which everyone should have already received via email. What that allows you is to go into Getz Brothers and grab a $15 pair of pants from Redwood City Little League. Do talk to your coaches though, because depending on the color of the uniforms, some coaches do like to spice it up and go with a gray or a black pant, which will cost a few extra dollars. One of the most popular questions, especially for our newer parents, is what do I need to go buy? Do I need to buy a bat? Do I need to buy a glove? What else do I need to go? What is the league providing for us? So each one of our coaches are provided enough balls, bats upon request, helmets, and catcher's gear for the year. What we then expect the parents to provide, we do expect each player to have their own glove, If on the younger levels, don't worry about buying a specialty glove like a catcher's glove or first baseman's mitt. There'll be enough of those provided by the league. We do want some baseball cleats, plastic cleats.
Yeah, no metal.
No metal cleats. And then for boys, we are looking for, we aren't looking, but the Green Book does require an athletic supporter and a cup if you are catching. So that's what is really expected out of the parents as far as what equipment you're bringing to the game here. On top of that, it's all really the basic things that you want to bring if you are going to an athletic event with your child. You're going to want to bring a sweatshirt or jacket after the game because it's going to be cold. They're going to cool down quickly, so you want to help protect an arm and both arms when it comes to cooling down after a game. You also want to bring water, Gatorade, whatever the favorite beverage is. That's something, staying hydrated, especially when we start warming up, is a big deal.
But please feed them at home before the game. Food is not in the dugouts. Seeds, gum, try to keep them out of the dugouts. Water, Gatorade, that's about it.
So the most popular question we've probably had for about a year and a half now is, what's the deal with the new bat regulations? I just bought little Johnny a new bat, now I gotta go buy a new one. So what Little League, along with several other organizations within the youth baseball world, have agreed upon is a new bat standard that allows a baseball bat to perform more like a wood bat, but still have the durability of a metal bat. The real driving force behind that is player safety. A lot of these hot bats, kids are throwing harder and harder, and there's line drives coming back faster and faster at our pitchers. Third base is is the hot corner for a reason, but when it's a really hot bat, it's even hotter than it sounds. So what Little League, Pony, Colt, a lot of the other youth baseball organizations have all adopted the USA Baseball stamp. So all these new bats are going to act more like a piece of wood than they would a standard bat that we've had in years past. Slight variance depending what division you're in. So for AA, AAA majors, you're able to go ahead and use one of these new bats. You're also able to use a wood bat if it's a single piece of wood. If it's a multiple piece of wood, it needs to have the USA Bat stamp on it as well. For our 50-70 juniors programs, you're able to actually also use the BB Core bats. Those are the bat standard that's used collegiately and in the high schools across the U.S.
Yeah, one thing I do want to point out is this logo right here, people, because these logos, our umpires are all going to be trained in it, and the bat basically has to have that symbol on it. If you pull out Johnny's bat today and you look at it and you do not see this USA Baseball symbol on it, it's no longer valid in Little League sports.
Alright, so the next couple of slides here, we're going to spend some time explaining the different divisions of play that we have here in Redwood City. These are all going to sound maybe a bit different than when you were growing up. Every city sort of has their own nomenclature when it comes to their own divisions of play.
I don't think we had 700, 800 kids in our division, so we have a lot of kids in our division, or in our league, so it kind of forces us to spread it out a little bit.
Alright, so the first division of play we have for our 5- and 6-year-old players is our T-ball division. That division, we're looking at really one practice during the week and a game on Saturday. Those games are all scheduled for about an hour a week.
Yeah.
And what we're obviously trying to do at the T-ball level is just introduce players to really bat safety and ball safety while that ball's coming off the tee. Yep. And then we're also trying to just get them to like the game of baseball. And that's really,
that's the job. Get them to come back next year.
Exactly.
Teach them to stand the right way and run the right way, and that's about it.
Yeah. And so
it's a lot of fun.
What we try to do every year, obviously sitting on the bench at any point in time in any sport is not a lot of fun. So what we're very lucky this year to have enough enough coaches who volunteered to be able to allow us to get down to 7, 8, 9 players per T-ball team, which means it's all action all the time for the players. Which is obviously when you start to love the game, is when you're actually playing it, as opposed to sitting there and watching other kids play it.
Yep. And it's 3 innings. Everybody bats throughout the whole inning, so everybody gets 3 at bats and plays the field 3 times, and that's about the hour.
Next up, we have our Intro to Machine Pitch division. That's the name we use to describe our A division. This has replaced what a lot of other cities still have, which is the Coach Pitch division. Why did we get rid of it? Well, there's a reason none of us are in the major leagues anymore, or never were. It's because we can't pitch. And there's nothing worse, because I know I've done it, than sending your son home with the golden sombrero after striking him out 4 times from 20 feet away.
Yeah, I mean, really, I was around when we decided to kind of switch this thing over, and it came down to consistency. From team to team to team and player to player to player. 2 things that really kind of come into mind. One is just the consistency of the pitch. You guys are going to think that this ball is hot at first and it's coming in fast, and it is coming in at a good speed. But the goal is not to have the kids learn to hit the ball day 1. The goal is to have them hit off that machine by the end of the year through the practice of it. So if you guys get out there and it's coming in a little hot, you know, that's what we're kind of expecting, because the second part of that is when they jump up to AA, we set that machine about 42 miles an hour is the speed that we're throwing that thing at. So if we have a coach pitch lobbing it into Johnny one year, and the next year they come back at a 42 mile an hour machine pitch, it's a really, really tough transition for these kids. So by incorporating this, we have the same pitch, the same speed across the whole division. It's kind of an intermediary between that and our T-ball and kind of getting up to the AA division. So we feel it's a real nice solution for all of our kids.
Correct, yeah. So we started off with T-ball, and the ball's not moving, and everyone loves, you know, just whacking the ball off that tee. The most frustrating thing was when, you know, dad or uncle or grandpa just sails the ball over your head for 5 pitches. So putting this mechanical pitching machine has really, I think, improved the experience and been just a more consistent pitch for players.
But we will every year. Oh my gosh, it's too hard to hit. It's too hard to hit. Well, yeah, I hope it is right now. It's the beginning of the year. Let's wait until the end of the year and see how they have. And I think every coach that's came to me after says we're pretty right on with kind of how that develops throughout the year.
And so with that, this division, we start incorporating outs. So if by the end of the year, you know, a team is able to get 3 outs, we'll switch sides as you would in a standard baseball game. Otherwise, we're having a 5-run limit for each inning, or if you bat around. In this division, as well as A-ball and AA, we do allow teams to get away with less than 9 players. It's actually, some days that's better than, you know, having a full squad. That allows you to, you know, everyone gets more bats and everyone gets more playing time, and no one's sitting on the bench wasting afternoon staring up the clouds.
Yeah, and typically we still have 4 outfielders in this division and AA, so typically there are those 10 players on the field.
Moving over to AA, so this is aimed for 8 to 9-year-old players, folks who have generally played a couple years in Little League, but if you are an 8 or 9-year-old who has never played before, this is where we're going to slot you as well. As Ryan explained, this uses a more standard-looking pitching machine. It's dialed up anywhere between 38 and 42 miles an hour at Bashir Griffin, which is where we have these where the 2 fields we use for this division. Here's where we start, unfortunately for most people, not taking team requests. As you can imagine, after 2 years of being able to request little Johnny to be on the same team as everyone else from his school, it's a bit jarring when all of a sudden RWCLL Little League says no. Why do we do this? Well, this is the first division where we're starting to introduce actual games with the year-end tournament where you have a winner or a loser. And so what we're trying at the 8 and 9-year-old division is trying to teach kids not only how to lose, but also how to win. And so that's what we're trying to do here, and then why we no longer accept the friend request as we've done in the previous divisions.
And we're setting up, because that's just the way it goes moving forward. You have your 1 coach, your 1 manager pairing, those kids go on that team, and from there in this division it is a blind draft, and we just kind of blindly draft and place people on teams using the system. Moving forward though, it goes down to an actual coach draft, which we'll talk a little bit about, but this is the division where that transition happens. So at AA, 1 coach, 1 manager, those kids get paired. Other than that, straight draft.
Yeah, and so at the end of the year, what you'll have is, actually during the season, the regular season, you'll still have 3 outs. You'd be amazed at the 8, 9-year-old division. There are some 1, 2, 3 innings, and there are more by the time the season progresses. What we have the same rules there that apply just to move the game along is 5 runs, or if the entire team bats around. Once again, we allow 10 people in the outfield. And then we do have the year-end tournament, which we'll have more information for everyone as that occurs. That's not going to show up on your schedule yet when you're taking a look at the rest of the schedule for you, as we do a random draw there for who plays whom during that tournament.
And one thing, when you guys are about to start your games, make sure you guys talk to the coach about the actual rules in this division. We do have slightly different rules for this. We have a circle in the middle, which kind of stops the ball. There's lots of different reasons I don't want to get into right now about that, but when you guys go out and, you know, Grandpa comes to his first game, he's like, what the heck is this? There is a method to it, but talk to your coaches, really figure out, you know, how these rules work, really get an understanding of what kind of makes it a dead ball in this division, and then you guys will have a better understanding as you guys get into the tournaments. It's pretty consistent now, so I'm real happy with the way that division's turning out. And it's a really, really fun tournament for these kids. A lot of teams, so you play a lot. It's a double elimination tournament, so it's fun. You guys will have a great time with that.
Yeah, and here's this is the division where we're introducing really our farmers division for umpiring. We're getting kids as young as 10 who've played AA and having them come out and being the first-time umpires for us. The hardest thing they have to do is they have to figure out how to have a pre-game meeting with 2 adults who are twice their size, and try to establish order and what their role is. Authority. Thank you. Authority as an umpire. A great training
and
management.
Are they going to announce their presence with authority?
So it's a great, as we were talking about, a lot of people, this is their first job. These are the first, kids that we need to help recruit, train, and keep for years going forward. So for all the AA parents here, even if the kid blows a call, we can't jump on them. We got to be paying attention, and we got to be treating all these kids like there's someone that we want to keep around for the next couple of years.
And coaches, feel free, let the call be made, but feel free to go and just talk with them. After the inning ends, and just say, hey, can you explain to me a little bit? Don't be running and yelling across the field. There's nothing that gets under my skin or the board member's skin as seen in AA especially. Adult umpire yelling across the field at a youth umpire, because we won't have any of that.
All right, next moving on to AAA. This is our first tryout division. This is when we move over to what we call the upper divisions within the Redwood City divisions that we have. This one is can range anywhere between 9 to 11-year-olds. That sounds like a big age gap, and it can be. What we do find is we do have players coming in all the time who've never played before, either moving into the area or just had never thought about baseball until they saw their friends on a Saturday at Red Morton playing. And so what this division allows us to do is to afford for those 9 and 10-year-olds who are higher skilled, have been playing for years, and are looking to move out of the AA machine pitch division, along with the kids who are newer to the game, who are really, frankly, just too big to have that machine pitch division ability and just that fastball right down the middle, because they're going to be too big to hurt somebody. Yeah. This will be the first year that players will have to actually go through our tryouts. And we use that term on purpose. It's not a player evaluation.
Right.
Not every single kid who's showing up for this tryout is going to be drafted onto a team. That is a numbers game that we have based off the number of players, the ages that are required through the Green Book and our own local rules, as well as just space and availability on how many practice times, hours, and fields we have.
Another reason to register early. Help us out, people.
So what you have here then is those teams are then selected by the coaches. So everyone who's been approved in early January, they sit there and they watch all these players try out. They're taking notes. They're paying attention to the hustle in the field and how players are acting during tryouts, and that's the team that they're drafting. Generally, our drafts. We'll just cover this really quickly. We'll pull a random order for drafts at the draft to be able to not surprise anybody or have someone have too much time to figure out their draft strategy. But it's a random serpentine style draft, so if there are any fantasy football or baseball players out there, it's the same thing you're doing on ESPN or Yahoo and how those drafts are going through. Our coaches' kids are slotted in specific rounds depending on their age. and that actually allows every player to have a shot at least at a first round pick, as well as making it our lives a little easier while we're managing a draft with 1/6 of the team is already slotted for us to allow us to move through the night quickly. What we're looking at for our AA division, obviously now we're trying to introduce the pitching motion. We're trying to introduce pitching and hitting off of live pitching. So that is a change from the machine pitches and the T-ball divisions we've had lower. With this particular division, because these are all players who are really pitching for the first time, or they're perfecting their craft after a year in AAA last year, we have a special rule in this division that keeps really the game from being a complete walk fest, which can happen during this age group. And that's where after ball 4, the coach will come in and deliver 3 pitches to the player.
Now, I personally really like this for multiple reasons. Number one being, it teaches a kid to pitch with no pressure. If they're not responsible for 3 walks in a row with 3 guys on base, they could learn to just pitch, understand mound presence, and understand all the nuances of pitching without worrying about how many they're walking. Because guess what? You could walk 3 kids but get 3 outs because coach comes in, ground ball, ground ball, ground ball. You're out of the inning. So it really does a nice job. And then from a hitting perspective, the kids who are hitting always get a nice pitch to hit, whether it be from the player who's pitching or the coach who comes in. I would love to be able to grab that machine that we have in single A and bring it back out for some of our coaches, Mr. Bobadilla. But that's what we do. So, it really does a nice job of introduction to pitching for these kids. It helps us control their pitch counts. And it keeps the game moving. It's really nice.
And so with this division, we also have a year-end tournament. That one's also a blind draw on where every one of the teams end up. So we don't really keep regular season standings in this division. And that's when we actually start looking at players for all-star teams. And we'll have a couple minutes we'll dedicate to that at the end of this.
Yeah, but don't worry. I mean, the point of this division is have the guys move around and play as much as they can all over the field, because you will get your chance to play your starting squad or whatever you want to look at it in that tournament. So during the regular season, everybody pitches on my team throughout the season. Everybody catches if they want throughout the season. And then as a coach, we could start to dial it in the last quarter of the season, get ready for that tournament. So you guys will see a little bit of transition, I think, between the coaches from the beginning of the year towards the middle of the year, towards the end of the year, and into the tournament. There may be a couple lineup shifts that you may see how your coach is approaching that.
Yeah, and really from age 9, 10, or 11, no Little League should be a single position player. And we do want, as Ryan said, we want everyone having that shot, and really that carefree shot at being a pitcher and not worrying about what's going to happen when I load the bases and blocking in a run, right? That's something that we're building in to help build confidence that just doesn't happen in this division. We just don't allow you to walk in a run. All right, so the division on top of that is our AAA Select division. With that one, it's for the same age range for those 9 to 11-year-olds, with the real distinction of we removed that coach pitch option, and it is now walks are happening, and you are really now learning to pitch on your own.
Yep. This is when it starts to get really competitive too. I mean, so the way that the draft works, if the majors guys drop down to select, before any of those AAA guys get, it's kind of the cream of the crop in that age group that you're looking for, and those coaches are going to, based on tryouts, are going to kind of select those guys based on that, and then those guys who don't get selected will drop down. So you do start to see your really competitive games starting about this level. And it does make it exciting, it does make it fun, but, it's still instructional at this point. And that's the one thing that I do want to stress is even AAA Select is an instructional league. We don't keep standings here again. It's a blind draft going into the tournament, or for your seedings in the tournament. So really the regular season standings don't mean much. You could play the best team or the worst team depending on what number you draw. So, again, coaches, parents, this division is instructional. It's instructional not just for the players, it's also instructional for our youth umpires. And this is also where we're starting to get some of our better youth umpires up into these select games, where the people who have kind of been through it a couple times really, and we're starting to get feedback from the coaches on these umpires who are better behind the plate, and we can start to position these guys in the AAA division and above.
All right, so moving up to majors. So this was when I know I was growing up, Ryan. This was the last division. This was the cream of the crop for Little League. So this is our age group of 10 to 12-year-olds. This is the division that has the most people trying out for, I believe. Yeah. And where Ryan just said during the tryouts has the most players dropping down who did not make a team. What that means is these kids go through the same exact thing as we just talked about with AAA. They're going to tryouts, they're being evaluated by coaches, and the coaches are the ones who are drafting these teams. Little League rules require us to have all our 12-year-olds. They need to go into majors or
must
above.
be in majors.
And so that's where sometimes you'll see a kid who may be better than a 12-year-old who is still in AAA Select based off of the number of 12-year-olds that are in the division. This year is a really big year for 12-year-olds with literally changing their age matrix. So it's really a year and a half worth of kids who are in majors. That just squeezed the envelope down for those AAA Select players who are looking to play up.
Which then does trickle down to AAA, and so it's a huge trickle down effect. And Mike's right. This year with the age change, we have a huge number of 12s, and when we only have X amount of resources and teams, if those 12s all go in there, 11s drop down, 10s drop down, and it's kind of this trickle down effect. So you see that from kind of top to bottom, and you also start to see it with injuries or somebody leaving the league, for instance. If we have a guy in majors who leaves, they need rosters of 12 by Green Book rules. So that means somebody from Select has to come in, so we have to replace it from somebody from AAA, which then is going down to AA and bringing somebody up at that point. So if you do see a little bit of roster movement, typically at this point in the game, it's from an injury. Where that player can't play throughout the rest of the year. If it's something where they get hurt but they should be back for the playoffs, we typically keep them on the roster and make no changes. However, if it is something that takes a guy out or they move away at the end of the year or something like that, we will replace it and they'll trickle down all the way down to the AA division. It could go from 50-70 all the way down, so that's something we do see from time to time.
Yeah, and so for the majors division, there are three real major differences, no pun intended, between Select and majors. So within Redwood City, we moved to lineup batting. So this is the first division in Redwood City. You'll actually have people on the bench and substitutes who need to come in. So this is where the Little League minimum play rules come into effect. In the previous divisions, we have roster batting, so everyone has the ability to hit no matter if they're in the field or not. Within majors, you get into the minimum play of 6 consecutive outs and 1 at bat. That's what every player is required to have every game, and that's what is required for your substitute to have before you can come back in. So this will look a little more standard like a Major League Baseball game where you'll have 9 players in the lineup and you'll start seeing those guys get more bats than the other players. So that's really the hard thing for really our younger players who are coming into majors, to understand the difference between that, and that's something that we hope you as parents and us as coaches can help explain better on how the league is different, that division is different than AAA.
And this is a competitive league at this point. Now we are keeping standings, so coaches will play kind of their best lineups throughout the season. So you may have a player that's a 6-1 player, or maybe 6-1 means 6 consecutive outs and 1 at bat. We do from time to time see managers kind of do that. If you have a kid who's not showing up consistently, is the main reason that you'll see that. But it really does get competitive here. And parents, if you're thinking, hey, my kid's not seeing the field, and last year he used to play 3 innings, and it really is a makeup of the division. And you have to understand that it is competitive. They are playing to have fun, but they're also playing to win because it does go against their standings for playoffs. So the better, I don't want to say the better players, but the guys who are involved more typically are those ones who will see more playing time, and the coach's own discretion on that one. We can't really control, hey, you have to let Johnny play more, because it's really up to the coach at that point.
Correct, yeah. As long as the coach is giving the minimum play time that's called out in the Green Book, there's nothing really else we can do. The other two major changes, the differences in majors, are a drop third strike. So in all the lower divisions, a swing and miss with 2 strikes is going to be a strikeout regardless if the catcher holds on to it or not. Once you get into majors, a drop third strike, it's a live ball, and the catcher needs to make the put out at first base, or if there's another runner in play, to make that play. The other one that takes people for a bit of a surprise is there's no time limit in majors. As Ryan mentioned earlier, this is our first competitive division where standings and scores count. So that means you're trying to force a win or a loss before the game ends. What that means is these games can run longer than the other divisions because they don't have those 5-run rules keeping you from shortening an inning. It also means that we can run into inclement weather, we can run into darkness, depending on where we're playing, and it can be a longer evening for the parents. So just fair warning for you new majors parents, it's a longer game, and it is one that's more like a real baseball game where there's no time limit. It can be done quickly if the pitchers are dealing and it's a 1-2-3 inning every time, but if it's a game where everyone's hitting or everyone's walking, it can be a longer day for you. The only time that we actually will put a time limit on something along those lines is if we have another game stacked up behind that game on a Saturday. And then we'll go into the league rules about how to pick up that game as a replay if needed.
Right.
All right, so next up is our 50-70 division, which in the Green Book as well as the rest of Little League is called 57 Intermediate. Where did that name come from? Well, it's the halfway point between a Little League diamond, which is 60 feet, and a Major League diamond, high school diamond, college diamond, which is 90 feet. So this one is actually at a 70-foot base path and a 50-foot pitching distance. So 4 feet longer from the pitching distance for batters to get an extra swing on, as well as longer base paths. Well, this is also where you can first start taking leads. So when you have baseball, you end up having pickoffs, balks, all the sort of things as Ryan just mentioned that you start seeing in high school, college, and Major League Baseball. And then what's the end of the road here for what Little League and Redwood City has to offer for baseball here? We have a baseball program. We're actually one of the bigger juniors programs on the peninsula, consistent having anywhere between 1 to 2 teams each year for any 13 or 14-year-old who's looking for baseball on that full-size diamond experience. Since there are less teams in that division within District 52, this team does get a little bit of a travel ball atmosphere to it. You're playing teams against San Francisco, San Jose, Fremont, and Half Moon Bay several times. Half Moon Bay being the other District 52 city that has plenty of players in this division. And then last but not least is our seniors division, which doesn't start until June. That is done because it's really where Little League's trying to capture those JV baseball players and have a full-size diamond experience there.
A summer program for those guys.
Exactly. And so what you'll see, sign-ups for that will happen in April or May for those 15 or 16-year-olds, and that allows them to really, to keep their skills going on the diamond there for from their JV team, or even better yet, if you miss the cut, it's another way for you to still stay on the field and still play.
And that's just it. High school ball is very competitive here on the peninsula. This does give anybody a chance to come out and continue playing baseball. We don't want to get in a position where these kids are 12 and 13 and they think, oh, baseball's done for me, because it's not. We do have solutions and we do have programs out there for these guys. Yeah, some kids may be JV high school players, but others may not. Maybe they just want to keep going in the summer and they like playing with their friends. So if you guys have any 15, 16-year-olds out there who just want to play the game and they're not playing high school, this is a nice little solution for them.
Yeah, and just personal experience here, I was a terrible hitter as a 12-year-old.
I've seen you hit. You're still terrible.
Thank you. Yes. But I still like the game of baseball, and there was when I grew up in St. Carlos, you wouldn't put straight into Babe Ruth, another competing program that we don't have to worry about anymore. But that's actually at age 13, you know, I don't know if it was hormones, growth, or what, but that's when the game just clicked for me. And so I was able to be, you know, that 6-1 player, and be able to start hitting the ball, start feeling the ball, start throwing the ball harder, and I was able to go walk on to the freshman JV team based off of one more year still playing baseball. And so I want to still capture all those players. Just whatever happened in your 12-year-old year or your 13-year-old in 50-70, that's just one season, and a lot can change in 1 year. Okay, so the next point we want to talk about, and this is really for the upper division parents, the lower division parents, you don't have to worry about this for a couple years, is the All-Star tournaments. So for those who watch ESPN in August and September, these are the Little League World Series that you're seeing. This is really where it all starts. Down at the district level, up until the sectional level, and then how a Little League team can really play throughout the entire summer if they keep winning their tournaments. How are all-star teams put together? Well, for our majors and 50-70 teams, since those are mostly teams where you don't have a lot of players or ages across multiple divisions, those are half put together by a player vote. So we'll put ballots out to the players, and they'll vote in the first 6 players for every single team. And Ryan, I don't know how you felt, but I think the last couple of years, it seems like the players have always gotten it right.
Yeah, no, they absolutely have. They know who's deserving of it, and better than we do half the time. So I love the fact that they're able to do that.
And so then when we elect our managers and coaches to be the all-star managers and coaches, they then fill out the remainder of the roster for whatever holes they may have or need. If we pick 6 pitchers and no catchers, that's obviously what we need to go figure out. Below that, we have our 9-10 and our 10-11 all-star teams. These ones, as we mentioned and you saw with the previous slides, you had kids across 3 different divisions. So it's really hard to get a player vote that's accurate for kids that they've never seen.
Right.
So for this one, it's really a conference amongst the coaches and how we vote in the 9-10 and 10-11 all-star teams. This is also, the all-star tournaments is also where we have that delineation between East and West, which is one of the most popular questions we have. And I live in West Redwood City. Why is my kid in the East? Due to the size of our population and how big of a program we are, Little League requires us to have 2 tournament teams. So that's where you'll start seeing the East-West designation when you get into AAA, because that's when your all-star eligibility are slotted as a 9-year-old, because that's when you can become and start being an all-star tournament player, and that's where you're slotted throughout the rest of your Little League career here in Redwood City. So after AAA, you'll start going to an East or West tryout, and you'll be drafted into an East or West divisional team. That it's really a distinction without a difference during the regular season. It is a way of dividing everybody up for the year-end tournaments, but has nothing to do with how the regular season will really play out. Right. So on top of that, District 52 has its own homegrown tournament, which is called a Super Bowl tournament. I've been lucky enough to coach one of these. It's a great 2 to 3 day experience for kids. It's especially for the kids who don't quite make the cut for the district all-stars. It allows them to have a tournament experience, to go play against some other players from other cities, and just get a taste of that. And so one of the local cities here on the peninsula will host this for the 1 weekend or 2 weekends as needed, and we get to go put 1 to 2 teams depending on how people sign up to go ahead and do that. And that's really, I think, where this process begins is with you as parents registering your 9 to 12-year-old or your 13-year-old in 50-70 for All-Stars. Previous years we haven't done such a great job of advertising this, and we're just hoping with this video and some more promotion we'll get more and more kids to sign up. We've actually had opportunities to send more teams to both the district level and to the Super Bowl tournaments, but we simply just didn't have enough players to sign up. So what we'll do is in May start with our registrations opening up for the All-Star ballots. And that will allow us to then start printing out some ballots and have that whole process of player selection done. The first question, of course, if you're planning your summer vacation, is when the heck are these tournaments? And so we have those listed on our website. They're actually on the District 52 website as well. This year works out well where they are going to try and have them all done really in between Father's Day and before 4th of July. So everyone who's on these teams can play on a 4th of July weekend without worrying about where their team may be. Speaking of 4th of July, one of my favorite things each year is the fact that we are the county seat and we are able to host the San Mateo County Parade. And so we, being the local Little League, are always able to participate in that. So we allow any players 7 years of age or older to come join us and to walk the walk during the 4th of July Parade. Players get to wear their jerseys. Where any parents or coaches who want to come out and help, or you can wear your Redwood City Little League gear or any of the other 4th of July paraphernalia you have. But it's a great time out to really celebrate a good season for folks. I don't know what's more American other than a baseball team walking through a 4th of July parade. It's a great time out, and it's, like I said, one of my favorite points of the year.
If we have anybody who's crafty, we're always looking for a float, right? And in years past, Ponch Rolls used to put together a great one for us. I don't know what ever happened to that thing. Ponch, you watching this? But if you guys are involved in that kind of thing and you like to help out the community and the kids and you want to participate, we're always looking for float ideas and somebody to help put that together and kind of lead our parade of children through the city. But yeah, if you guys are interested in helping out, please reach out to one of us on the board, and we would love to get that started again.
And that's really a great segue, thank you, Ryan, to what I think a lot of parents just want to ask, hey, how do you get involved? How do I help? So it obviously takes a village to be able to do everything that we do to support the 600 plus kids in order to play baseball here in Redwood City. So really what the first thing you can do, that first day meeting your coach, when hopefully they're having their parent meeting and introducing you to themselves and the rest of the team, is just ask how you can help. There's lots of ways to help out a team every day that can make the coach's life easier.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, Kiwanis, we're going to try to have as many field games at Kiwanis and Mitchell. We have scoreboards there. Coaches all know where the scoreboard boxes are. So if you're looking around and you say, hey, the scoreboard's not on, go ask the coach and plug it in. If you ask Mike, myself, how it all works, it's super simple once you know what you're doing. But that's the kind of thing we're looking for, is really to get the scoreboard up, and even the announcers. If you guys want to get on the PA, I have no problem coming out, especially if it's a Saturday, setting up the PA with the score booth there, and you guys could go ahead and announce the games. I know when I start doing it, I have little kids coming up and saying, hey, can I announce a name? And that's the kind of environment we want. We want to bring that to our city. So yeah, little Coco and Ella love to get on the mic and announce and say players' names, and it drives more to our community, because now we're talking about two sisters who don't play baseball getting involved. It's all part of that community. So figure out just something that you like doing. Scorebook, big one. Every team's going to need a scorekeeper, and that's a training that I think we've done in years past that we may want to look at doing again this year, is a scorebook training, because you do need that, especially when you get into pitch counts with your older teams. And to watch that, so. Yeah,
then the other popular ones, just that help the coach out immensely, are setting up and breaking down a field. In the older groups, you can force the kids to do a lot of that work, but a coach's day will start 2 hours before a game setting up a field, and it'll end an hour and a half after a game, depending on the watering, dragging a field, putting a fence up and down. So any sort of help at that point in time that helped that coach get off the field, it helps the coaches immensely, and they remember that. Now they'll remember that in the next couple of years too, when it's time for drafting on who helped and who didn't. So the other, really, on the topic of just respecting the coach's time, one thing that I find that really helps out when I'm putting a practice plan together or when I'm planning for a game is having the parents fill out the availability of the player with either on the website or on the SI Play app. If I know I'm only going to have 6 kids showing up for practice, that's fine, and I can go ahead and plan accordingly. And I will totally structure that practice separately than I would if all 12 were there.
Nothing worse than having groups of 12. The next thing you know, you have 7 guys there. It kind of blows up your practice, right? And you're not getting the things done that you want to get done. But if I know I have 7, my groups are going to be set up accordingly. So please do. And that comes, just so you guys know, if you have it turned on your user, it's 48 hours before your scheduled time. You guys get an email. Hey, Johnny has practice coming up at this date and time. At the very bottom, it's yes, he'll be there, or no, he won't. All you got to do is click that button, and that's going to put it into the system. If you hit no, it's actually going to notify the coach right away saying that Johnny's not going to be there. I don't know why I keep saying Johnny, but that's the name I'm going with today. But Johnny's not going to be there. And that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for as coaches.
And then the other half of that is letting us know when not only when you're going to be there, but then picking up the players on time. Just a pet peeve, I think, for most coaches, because we don't allow them to leave unless all the players are gone.
We don't allow the coaches to leave.
Correct. Thank you for that clarification.
The kid can't leave.
Part of our safety program, of course, is we're trying to protect the kids. So I know a lot of folks, we're all very busy, we're all running from place to place, and we'll call coach and say, hey, just leave them there, I'll be there in 10 minutes. That's just something we just can't allow, and we don't allow our coaches to do. So everyone always appreciates a parent who's picking up players on time and then doesn't force us to hang out at the field, because of course coaches want to get home, get on with their lives, go have dinner, run over to another kid's game.
Start making their lineup for tomorrow's game.
Exactly. So some of the other things we talked about just earlier in the video about what would you do if you're just going out and leaving the house anyway. It's still cold outside. I know everyone who started practice in the month of February, it's still in the 40s out there, and you've got kids showing up in their t-shirts thinking it's perfect baseball weather. Really what helps an arm cool down and not be injured is keeping it warm after after a throwing experience, after practice. So having a sweatshirt is really important to have for any player in order to keep that arm healthy and keep it strong throughout the rest of the season. On top of that, the flip side, when it does get warmer, not all of the facilities we have water fountains right next to the field. So make sure to pack your player with as much water as they would like to drink in a 6 or 7 inning game.
But the bathroom's sometimes far away, so keep that in mind.
Exactly. And then really on the hydration point, the best way to not get dehydrated is to be hydrated coming into a practice or a game. So obviously, like we said, we're all very busy people, but staying hydrated pre-game, really, professional athletes start drinking, tons of water a night before a game, especially in our hot environments. And with our turf fields, we do get some games that it's going to be 100+ degrees on the field. So in those days, hydrating early and often are what keep our players healthy. Next up is really I want to build off what Ryan was saying about you volunteering as a parent. When you're scorekeeping, when you're announcing, when you're helping with the fence or you're dragging the field, I can tell you your kids are always impressed by you helping the team, and that it's a great example for them on how it takes a team to do all these things, and no one's too good to go help out and help the team out. No one's too good to get up and do some manual labor and repair a mound or drag an infield.
Not every coach is going to ask you, but they'll always say yes if you offer.
Correct. The other thing we really want you guys are going to be the best examples, and the first person they're going to look for into in the stands whenever anything happens is how to be a good sport. So paying attention, cheering on people, not getting on our umpires that we said earlier, not getting on other players. There's tons of examples throughout youth sports these days where there's just bad habits by a lot of people, a lot of adults who just take the game and the sport too seriously, and really ruin it for their kids. So we want to just ask that everyone, we don't have that in Redwood City, and that be a good example of good sportsmanship for your children. Along those lines, it's the so who are normally getting yelled at? It's the coaches, it's the umpires. As we mentioned, they're an integral part of our Road City baseball family. We can't have a game without umpires. When those bad calls come, and they will happen, we just got to accept that as that's part of the game and move on. Ryan's mentioned a couple times here where we're trying to improve the community feel, where getting kids out who aren't have no connection to baseball anymore, who are not playing baseball, are coming out to participate and either watch a game, help out with our snack stand, or help out with announcing a game. So the best way, I think, and this is the way I'm sure that Ryan learned how to play baseball, was watching baseball with a sibling, a parent, and it's not just professional baseball watching that. It's coming down to Red Morton on a Saturday when there's a full slate of games, coming out and watching a baseball game. Best way for them to see other kids, maybe their size, maybe a little bit bigger, make a mistake and get back up and keep playing. So it's one of the best ways to learn the big game baseball is to actually come out and watch a game and watch some youth baseball down here in Road City.
Absolutely, nothing better. And
then last but not least, we just want everyone to remember, just take a deep breath, relax and have fun. These are all kids who are still learning the game of baseball. These are all umpires, they're all even coaches who are still learning their coaching skills and how to do things better. And just remember, it's a game that we're all privileged to still be able to coach, play, or interact with, and have fun.
Yeah, I mean, with that, that's what it's about.
So just to put a cap on this presentation, the Road City website is where we like to hand out all our information, so check there. That's where you can contact the board of directors for any questions you may have. It's where you're able to go find all your information for your team. And last but not least, go ahead and like us on Facebook so we can get you some more information quickly. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching.